Hey, how's it going? New York Nincompoop here. Today I'm going to be telling you about the top 3
defensive
breakout candidates for the Seattle Seahawks in this season. Last year I did one of these and let me tell you, I did quite alright. I said DK Metcalf, DJ Dallas, and Benson Mayowa would be the 3 breakouts, and I'm going to give myself 1.5. DJ Dallas kind of disappointing. When he actually was starting, the team didn't do too well, he didn't do too well, but what can you say? You got put into a bad situation with Chris Carson and Rashad Penny being injured. Benson Mayowa, I think he did decent. 6 sacks last season, that's more than what the sack leader of the season before had. 4 sacks from Rasheem Green, I believe. And DK Metcalf, kind of a given, but he absolutely showed out and he was a superstar last year. So it's time to get into the 3 for this year, and hopefully I'll have more than 1.5. Now I'm going to be completely honest, I don't want to do a New York accent the whole video, so I'm going to stop right now and let's just get right into number 1, and that's going to be Darrell Taylor. This is kind of like the given that DK Metcalf was last year. It may not be as much as a given, but I think everyone kind of expects Darrell Taylor to do quite well. I'm really struggling not to say Darrell. I have no idea why. Now, Darrell Taylor is someone who had a pretty interesting situation last year. He didn't play whatsoever. He's like the LJ Collier, where he didn't play his rookie year due to an injury, but he's probably going to come back this year and have a big chip on his shoulder because he needs to prove himself, because of course he wants to get something after that rookie year. He needs to gain a spot on this team so that he can continue to prove himself. So he's probably going to come in, chip on his shoulder, and it looked like he already has, because in the rookie mini camps he came out and he did really well. A lot of great things were said about him. You've heard really nothing but great things about him throughout the rookie mini camps, the OTAs, stuff like that. He has had a very good offseason so far. The coaches really seem to be liking him, and he's going to be having a very interesting role and probably has some pretty big shoes to fill. There have been some recent rumors that have been spreading that basically the Seahawks are going to be giving up on KJ Wright and focusing on Darrell Taylor and Jordan Brooks as the linebackers for the future, and that's something that I am a-okay with. I would love to have KJ Wright back, but I will never be opposed to getting younger at a position, especially if you have talented players to fill those spots. And from what we've heard, Darrell Taylor seems to be doing quite well. We really don't have anything to go off of except for what coaches and people around him are saying, but a lot of good things have been said, and it seems like he's probably going to be taking that same linebacker spot, which is going to be very important to fill, and he'll probably get the brunt of the snaps at that spot, if not all of them. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. When I was first talking about Darrell Taylor and him taking the same linebacker spot, for some ungodly reason, every time I hear linebacker, no matter what kind of linebacker, I'm just like, ooh, coverage. And for some reason, that's just all that was stuck in my head was, ooh, can he play coverage? Can he do this? Can he do that? But same linebacker is part of the bear front, which I've been able to familiarize myself with a little bit more because I realized how much of an absolute buffoon I was really playing into the nincompoop role that I am. It's clear that Sam linebacker is going to be more of his style, where you can, rush the passer. He's a defensive end. He got drafted to be a defensive end, but we have so much depth at defensive end. Him coming out to be a Sam linebacker, rush the passer, probably going to be using his athletic abilities a bit more. Probably a really good spot for him. I'm very excited for the season for him. Now, I don't know if I really want to do stat predictions for this because I'm not sure how well that's going to go out, but I'm just going to throw it out here. Maybe 8 sacks for Darrell Taylor would be absolutely phenomenal. And now the second player that I believe has some pretty decent potential to be a breakout candidate for the Seahawks this year is LJ Collier. Now hear me out. I know a lot of people have just kind of brushed LJ Collier under the table, kind of said, yeah, that's kind of a failed draft pick for the Seahawks. However, the Seahawks have a pretty clear issue at defensive tackle right now, and I believe that we can sign someone like Geno Atkins, but if we don't do that and we have Poona Ford as a D-tackle number 1, we can probably have a D-tackle number 2 of LJ Collier. He could probably come in, play that role. We have so many defensive ends. It's kind of the same situation with Darrell Taylor. We have so many defensive ends that are solid. It's going to be really hard to find your spot in a rotation with that many people. So I would not be surprised if LJ Collier would completely jump at the idea of him moving to defensive tackle and getting more of an opportunity. He could possibly show that he can rush the passer a bit. He can do some run stopping and really fill into a role of defensive tackle. But I feel like if anyone is going to be moving into a spot like defensive tackle, it's going to be LJ Collier. He has the size to do it very clearly. He's still listed as someone who is a defensive end, but I definitely think he can make the move to defensive tackle. It would definitely be tough for him because defensive tackle, you got to be a big boy, and I mean, it's going to be a real challenge for someone to move from defensive end. Poona Ford, who's probably going to be our number 1 guy. He looks good. I really like Poona Ford. He is insanely athletic somehow at 5'11", 310 pounds. he's got, what, 20 pounds on LJ Collier, and he's 3 inches shorter, so his center of gravity is going to be a lot lower. He has a lot more mass and a more compact frame, so LJ Collier, I think he could probably do it, and that's probably his best chance to get any real high snap numbers. I think a move to defensive tackle, at least temporarily, while we still have some older guys like Carlos Dunlap here. We have Kerry Hyder, Benson Mayowa. We have some really solid guys who are getting up there in age at the defensive end spot that may not be here after this year, next year. I believe Carlos Dunlap has a 2-year deal. Kerry Hyder, I believe he has 1 year, maybe 2. Benson Mayowa is done after this year, so something like that. You know, LJ Collier, he can move over to defensive tackle, maybe find a permanent situation there. I think LJ Collier, he's another guy like Darrell Taylor that needs to prove himself after not playing his rookie year. He was a high draft pick that everyone's throwing out as a bust, and I thought last year that he would be showing out because he is that guy that is labeled a bust. He's going to be showing what he can do, and I think he did pretty well. In the snaps that he got, he showed some pretty good signs, and I think that if he had the possibility to move to defensive tackle, I don't know if it's actually something that's going to happen, but if it does, I think he would jump at the opportunity and do pretty well because, you know, he's going to have a fire under him. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder, and that is really great because there's really nothing more that can fuel a player to play at the top of his game than having to prove himself. You know, if you don't really have to prove yourself, you kind of see it with running backs. If you get that big contract, they kind of die off a little bit. Even if they are still really good, they kind of aren't at the top of their game. But someone like LJ Collier going into this really important 3rd year where he only has 2 more years to prove himself. He didn't even play his 1st year. He has to really prove himself to get that next contract. If he wants to get that contract, I feel like he could come out and actually play really solid if he got the opportunity to move to defensive tackle. And for the 3rd and final defensive breakout candidate, you may notice something a little bit different, and that's because I recorded this video multiple weeks ago, and it wasn't even a defensive breakout candidate. It was just an overall breakout candidate video, and Tamorrion Terry was my 3rd breakout candidate, and we all know that he's not breaking out this year. So since I had multiple offensive and defensive breakout candidates, I'm just separating them into 2 different videos, but the 3rd and final defensive breakout candidate is going to be Ahkello Witherspoon. This video was initially recorded well before training camp, so there's a little bit more insight. I have a lot more confidence in Darrell Taylor being a breakout candidate still. LJ Collier, I haven't heard of him getting opportunities at defensive tackle yet, but Ahkello Witherspoon has been a guy that has completely showed out in training camp so far. He's had multiple great plays in training camp. A lot of great things have been said about him. He's probably going to be the 2nd corner right behind DJ Reed. He may even take the starter spot, but Ahkello Witherspoon is definitely a guy that was brought in because of his huge upside potential. He obviously has shown flashes of being an absolutely amazing corner, but injury, inconsistency, stuff like that has really put a question to if he can really live up to his potential. But if he can, he will be an amazing corner, and I think that he can possibly play really well for the Seahawks. From what we're hearing about training camp, about him doing really well, really makes me excited for what he can possibly do alongside DJ Reed, and having all the depth and talented players that we do on the defensive line in the pass rush that can possibly get pressure on the quarterback and even sack the quarterback this year. It'll make the job easier for the corners, and Ahkello Witherspoon being a guy that kind of lacks experience, kind of lacks inconsistency. If the Seahawks defensive line and pass rush can get to the quarterback and make the quarterback throw a non-perfect throw, I believe Ahkello Witherspoon can easily get up there and break it up, if not intercept it, because we have seen some clips of him really making some amazing athletic pass breakups. So Ahkello Witherspoon, my 3rd and final defensive breakout candidate. I'm really confident in him and Darrell Taylor making that jump and playing really well this year. LJ Collier, I still do believe that if he gets an opportunity at defensive tackle or even gets some opportunities in the pass rush, he can do well. He can get quite a few sacks. He can probably do well in the run game. Overall, I think that LJ Collier probably is the least likely to break out. Darrell Taylor probably the most likely, and Ahkello Witherspoon right behind Darrell Taylor. But overall, I definitely do think that these 3 breakout candidates probably have a great chance of doing better than the 1.5 that I got last year with DK Metcalf and half of Benson Mayowa doing well. But let me know down below in the comments what your top 3 breakout candidates for the Seahawks defense are going into this season. Like I said before, I'm going to be doing another video with the top 3 breakout candidates for the offense. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you're new, and with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a great day.